Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's guest, but as always, we're going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Remember, these are all companies I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. Really recommend you check them out. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Toolbox Extra guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to their website and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. It's probably one of the best purchases that I ever made as an athletic director. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that demo today. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, we were a Huddle school, and our coaches, our student athletes, even our parents just love the tools that Huddle provides. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Beacon Creative Wall of Fame. You know, Vital Signs Wall of Fame has been helping schools bring their legacy to life for decades, but Beacon Creative is adding a lot more. It's a creative content service that's going to supply you with compelling stories for your digital platforms. We always hear that schools have a hard time celebrating their athletes. Well, Beacon Creative is going to allow you to do that without lifting a finger. Email John Townsend at John, at beaconwalloffame.com. You're going to be glad you did. Let's also thank Hometown. Hometown continues to be the leader in things like digital ticketing, athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising. Hometown is there for coaches, for athletic directors, and for principals, and they're going to show you how to save time, how to raise more money, and how to bring your community together. You'll find it all at hometown.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team help you promote your program, your athletes, your teams. Your school's doing great stuff, and Gipper's going to provide the tools that's going to help you tell your story, engage your audience, and grow your brand. Go to Gipper.com, and as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. We want to thank Home Campus. Scheduling, rosters, results, communication, facilities. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com to get started. That's homecampus.com. We'd also like to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and while they were completing their degree, they also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, I'm telling you, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school with our teams, and it was tremendously successful. Check out all their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, and it's Snap Raise. We also want to say thanks to athletic surveys. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for student athletes, for coaches, how about parents? And the data that came back is almost always over the top positive. It allowed us to connect and take the pulse of our stakeholders. We still got to hear from the complainers, but the survey allowed us to address their concerns, usually keep them from turning into something big. But having all that data, like I said, incredibly valuable. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create that custom survey just for you. Athletic Surveys, and as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to another Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. Longtime listeners to the podcast will certainly recognize the name Orlandus Thomas. If you don't, go back and to our library and check out his contributions to the podcast. Orlandus is a certified athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics for the Intrinsic Charter High School. That's the downtown campus. has a tremendous background in athletics, does a great job for his students, very active at the local and the state level. It's also going to be at the national conference. But Orlandus Thomas, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Well, Jake, thank you for having me back. And like I said, I also want to thank you for my submission into your fourth edition of the AD Toolkit. Like I said, just a lot of good information in there, a lot of good advice for AD. So very honored and humbled to be a part of that and to be returning to give future advice to any athletic directors across the country.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, Orlandus was one of our interviews that went into the recently published fourth edition of the Athletic Director's Toolbox, available on Amazon. Make sure you get your copy and check out all the tools, including the ones that Orlandus submitted. Well, Orlandus, again, the Toolbox Extra, it allows our guests to kind of share with our listeners a topic or sometimes topics that they are passionate about. What do you have for our listeners on this segment?
So, this topic today is something that actually rolls into my most recent role that I've been added for the Illinois Athletic Directors Association, and it ties with my background in physical education. One of the roles that I'm accepted is I am our state coordinator for the health and wellness, for which the NIAAA just added that committee over the last several years. So I am the state's health and wellness state coordinator. So one of my main passions that has been probably since 2016 is mental wellness, especially when it comes to athletics, right? So, and just understanding that it's both a competitive advantage and a moral imperative. And I just want to just define it as this place of being a well-being where athletes and staff can cope with stress, can work productively and realize their potential. And it's one of those topics that hasn't been talked about. Recently, it has, but for quite a long time, I know coming up in my years of coaching prior to 2015, 2016, it wasn't one of those things that you really heard a lot being addressed. And I just want to talk about it today because it's a common thing now that it is very imperative for any program, anything with athletics, because it's one of those things that's not optional. It's like it impacts our performance, our safety, our retention, and just our overall wellness and experience when it comes to athletics. So, and I want to approach it today from just three different dynamics because athletics is one big cloud, but it affects all the dynamics that affects athletics. I think the first one, obviously, to talk about is the student athlete, right? This is talk about how it affects them. And I like to call it this thing called the high school pressure cooker, right? So when I say the high school pressure cooker, there's so many stressors that our athletes have to endure, just along with, in addition to like practices and games, there's performance anxiety, right? There's fear of failure. There's balancing academics and athletics. There's external pressure, which comes with like the scholarships and social media and year-round specialization for some of them, and then just intense and even just pressure from their parents, right? It's like, I've paid all of this into and invested into you, the sport, so you have to perform that, right? And that's just the external pressure that our high school athletes endure. And then we talk about the internal pressure that athletes, like their own, like having to be perfect, having to equate their self-worth to their performance, their fear of failure, their identity being tied to a sport. We don't think about like a 6'8" kid walking in a hallway, he's already attached to being a basketball player, right? And everything that comes with that. So I'm just saying that because I'm thinking about our star basketball player right now. Like that's what he has to endure and everything that comes with that. So I want to make sure that as coaches, like I still coach, is that we're doing the right steps and the things to make sure we are having the holistic wellness for our student athletes. And it's not just about a practice plan where it's just, practice, 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 game, 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 right? We want to have those tools implemented inside of our season that we're doing those wellness checks with our student athletes. So several things that coaches can do. Create, 30-second reset breathing, right? And have just like techniques where we talk about them visualizing a play. Like when I was a coach, I used to have my kids visualize like a free throw, the process of the free throw, making the free throw, what it feels like. We can have those type of mechanisms before a big game, before a practice, just to kind of like put their mind in the place of where it needs to be so they can mentally focus during a game, right? Have check-ins during practice, right? Just kind of have a practice where it's not a practice, where it's not where we're bouncing a ball or we're running on a football field. Just have it to where you're just doing a mental wellness check-in with them. That could be anything from mindfulness to meditation to just where you're resetting their wellness, because a season is 13 weeks, right? So 13 to 15 before playoffs. So if you're not doing anything to check in with the student athlete during that time, like you're building all this tension to where you're affecting their performance when they need to perform at the peak moments. When I was a cross country coach at another school, at a Catholic school, I remember I was a distance coach, right? And what I would do with my distance kids, we had a practice where we just literally closed the door. I had yoga mats out. We did guided meditation, and the sprinters didn't do anything at that time. All the other other coaches didn't do anything. They just kind of practice and practice, perform. One of the things that I noticed with my distance athletes during that time, we started to see that they were improving their times, but part of it because they were coming into high profile meets more relaxed and focused. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, after my head coach, who happened I ran in high school with, next thing you know, he takes the gym, puts all the track team, boys and girls, inside of the gym. He has screens that we're doing yoga and doing meditation and mindfulness. So, and that led to us having 16 of 18 events qualify for state, and we finished top 10 that year. All from a simple, no, I mean, the other things that come with it, but all from the approaching it from doing these mental wellness check-ins with these athletes. And that shows that we not only care about our student athletes for performance-based, which is that transactional mindset, but we care about them as holistic human beings for the transformational aspect. So.
I mean, just so many great points. I mean, just even talking, having the discussion, with us, with our listeners as an AD, having that discussion with your coaches about mental health and mental wellness. I think obviously you really need to be intentional about it. And, whether it's a mental health Monday or you're doing it multiple times during the week, having those exercises, and you talked about it, the visualization's a great one, simple breathing. There's just so many ways that leaders, athletic directors, coaches can help and here's the nice thing, they're going to be addressing the challenge, if you will, student athlete mental health. But oh, by the way, it also helps performance. They will play better and execute better. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yep, it's actually, and it's just like so many different things. Like we have to help student athletes understand, like as they're going through that process of games or practices, that they're going to make mistakes. And the thing is, and I'm going to say this as a coach, it's okay to normalize mistakes, like, and use those as like reflection pieces. Like, what did I learn today? Or how am I going to get better? Like, I'm saying that as a person that watched my daughter, who's in college right now, be a three-sport athlete in high school. And the two things that I always told her, are you having fun, and did you get better? Like, what did you learn? So like having those things where I would watch her get upset over these tough games and she just run in my arms and crying like she's like she failed her team. And I said, did you get better? What did you learn from it? What are you going to take away from this that's going to make you better? Right? Like it's okay to make mistakes. Failing helps us, drives us to be a better version of ourselves. So helping to understand that failure is okay. And it's not like it's the end of the road for athletes. And I think our society teaches failure in terms of it's perfection or bust, and failure is just like the end all. It's like wins and losses are not can't be lessons. So, and that's where I've like retooled where to me losses are lessons. And if you apply that mentality and that mindset to as you coach, that'll help kids bounce back to understand that it's okay to make a mistake. I'm going to learn, I'm going to get better, I'm going to move forward. So, and then just help them understand that, there's more to their sport, there's more to them than their sport, right? There's more to them than just being a basketball player. There's more than that's just a small piece of what makes them who they are. And talk about some of their goals and purposes like outside athletics. Like again, we want the athletic experience to be the experience that helps develop our kids holistically, and that we don't only care about them in the realm of the space that we have, but we want to care about them as a whole human being. So asking about their day, asking about things that affect them in their day, like those type of things show that now it's not about performance based for me, but I care about your wellness well beyond the 2 hours that I see you in practice, well beyond the game, well beyond, any experience I can have you as a coach. I'm developing a lifelong relationship with you.
Again, all great points. This, as you're working with coaches and just doing the day to day of the job, sometimes coaches can be a little resistant to trying something new, stepping out of the box. What are some things that you've done at your school to, I guess, help encourage, your coaching staff to be a little more intentional about this topic?
Some of the things I've done, like I've had where sessions with my coaches where we talk about these things and we talk about like as coaches, we have our stressors, right? We have the things that we go through as coaches that impact our performance and what we do. So it's like we want to invest that same wellness piece into the students that we serve. Like, what are the things that we do to model our own personal wellness that and how we handle our stressors that we can implement and use those life lessons to impact and show our kids the same ways to do those things in their lives. So, which is actually kind of a great lead into talking about our coaches' mental wellness, right? And the one thing we don't realize, coaches carry the emotional loads of multiple athletes, right? Each athlete, student athlete, comes with their own emotional like challenges or things that that they come with. So coaches bear all of that, and we want them to model the behavior that we want our athletes. So when we don't want our coaches to get burned out, we don't want them to they're crawling to the end of the line for their coaching season, because that's what leads to burnout. That's what leads to we want the things to retain our athletes, right? So we just want to make sure we're covering those things to make sure our coaches are taken care of. Like, and I think to help with that, we want to make sure coaches have boundaries too, right? Coaches set your boundaries, have communication windows, have clear expectations with your parents, have game day routines, have grounding breaths, have positive framing towards addressing your team, have peer support, check in with other coaches, right? Have like the basketball coaches check in with each other, have the soccer coaches talk about experience, exchange like cross best practices that worked with this team that was outside the box. Like if a soccer coach is doing something that works awesome with a basketball, and it may not seem like the sport is the same, but it's the same technique, like definitely use those support tools from your other coaches. Talk about wins, talk about what challenges you've had, okay? And then for coaches, and I'm saying this as an AD and as a coach, learn the power of delegation. like, like you can sometimes you can be that super coach and want to do everything, but realize part of coaching and delegating is to help not only your assistant coaches, your managers, and your captains to grow, but it also helps you grow because you're learning things and learning from strengths that they may have that you may not have, right? So and you're allowing them to grow into their best version of who they are, because it's only through that trial and error and responsibility that they have that they can only become their best versions of themselves. Like that's something I learned with my assistant AD. And I had to learn to allow her to fail, but the way she came back, and it made her have a desire and a passion for being an athletic administrator, that I watched her evolve and just grow into someone amazing. So it's learning that you don't have to do it all by yourself, and you don't have to have that added stress on you. And it's okay to have that support, that group around you, right? So definitely have that. And then take the time. There's so much also for personal and professional development in these topics. Like I know the NFHS has courses that discusses like training on mental wellness. I know the NIAAA has training, and they have and I think the course is 635, somewhere around there in the 600 courses that the NIAAA. I'm saying that because I also am going to be teaching that course at the state conference in March. So reach out to these things, and then just take time to do your own personal recovery. It's okay to schedule self-care, right? It's totally okay to do that. Have hobbies, have, rest. I know we say that in coaches, like rest. Literally, I know for myself, and now I'm probably speaking on the AD side, I know the weekends or on Saturdays and Sundays, there's 2 to 3 hours blocked off for me to go work out, because that is like one of my biggest stress relievers. Like, and that's also where I get my most creative thoughts and ideas, is making that space and time to work out, because it releases the endorphins that allow creativity and for me to rejuvenate myself. So, like I said, that's the time I build in for my personal care to make sure that I recharge myself for the rigors that come with being both a coach and an athletic director.
Yeah, I mean, you just talked about self-care is certainly a foundational principle for us. Athletic directors are servant leaders by definition. You can't help
Mhm.
somebody else if you're not functioning at 100%. And you mentioned delegation for coaches. I think that's one of the hardest tools, if you will, for athletic directors to use effectively. To again, not take on everything, to delegate and allow some of your other people in your staff in your department to grow and maybe flex their leadership muscles.
Yep. And then it's the same thing for us as ADs. Like we know we have long hours. We have fatigue. We have emotional demand. One of the things I told my past principal, I remember, and I'm just sharing this as a side story. I was at a senior night for one of my fall sports, and he was next to me, and I was talking with my volleyball coach for our senior night. And then I went to my principal, and it made me think of how many coaches come up to me with different requests and things and all that. And then in my brain, I shifted and thought about, if this is what I get as an athletic director, I can only imagine him as the principal, or at the time, him as the principal, what he gets. And I said, I'm very conscious of the space and having respect for you, because if I get it from just this department, you get it from every department. So just being aware of the position that people hold and honoring the space that they need to have their personal space too. And so I just want to talk about like all of that, like with athletic directors, because we manage so many things between all our coaches. We manage our, and then just the duties of being an AD. And AD burnout is real. Like I it's very real. So one of the things that I know has helped me as an athletic director, other than like having systems in place and like protected time that I have to block out to reset, the biggest one, and I said this in 2 years ago when I got the AD of the year, I said I would not be where I am if I didn't have my group of, I call them AD super friends. And I think the biggest thing you can do is have create your AD network, people that are like your support for problem solving for anything that you're having. I truly wouldn't be where I am if I did not have that. Like, and that network and that family has been so amazing for me. I just talked to my good friend, I believe he's one of the people in your book too, Steve Diversey, who is one of my very close friends. And ironically, he just he's getting the athletic director of the year for this year. And I called him the other night because he's just been a mentor for me for the last 5, 6 years. And, you know, anytime I've had anything going on or I have a question about something, or even if it's that it's okay to not be okay, I've been able to call him and have that person that you can lean on and say, did you have that fraternity of athletic directors that understand the nature of the business and the profession that we do, that even, you know, being a servant leader is a high stress like environment, and just having that place to vent that and understand to people that connect with what you do. So yeah, it's just you have to do the daily things and have the things that balance like your healthy balances. And then also as ADs, celebrate the wins that you get, right? Like we so much focus on the problems that we don't celebrate the little wins and acknowledge that we get. And one of the things I know that's very big for me that's been this school year, and I said I had to write it as a sticky note every morning. I start off, I said, before I walk into my school building downtown Chicago, I said, I'm gonna walk through this door with an attitude of gratitude, right? So when I say that, it's like, what are things I'm gonna find grateful for my role, for my coaches, for my student athletes who I serve, like what are things I'm grateful. So it's starting walking in that building with an attitude of gratitude. So because study shows when you are in a place of gratitude, it lifts the endorsements and the positives that are going on in your brain and puts you in a mood instead of starting off with, if I have this problem or this issue or this parent that called me last night and I'm trying to walk in with that, you've already created the stress cloud, right? And it's going to be hard to weather through that thunderstorm if you created the forecast before you walked in the door, right? You know, I want to create the sunny experience that Jake you get to have in Florida. Like, I want to create that every day, even through the cold weather of Chicago. So that's like kind of been my main focus every time when I'm on the train, especially before I walk in the door of my building, is to start with an attitude of gratitude. So those are the things that I do to keep myself sane. And I think that it's like we have to find as athletic directors the best practices for ourselves. We have to find the best resources for our coaches, and then making sure that those resources are the best practice to better serve and make the athletic experience for the student athletes holistically, so that they are much more than just student athletes, and so that we're invested in them as holistic human beings.
You know, I was just scrolling down some notes. Tremendous stuff, and I love how you finish things up with one of my favorite catchphrases, that attitude of gratitude. As a rookie teacher 100 years ago, I was cursed and blessed. The school I was at was a middle school, and there were some great things about it, but there just seemed like a lot of the teachers, all they did was complain. And it was just like, geez, this is great. You know, we're getting paid to teach and coach. I thought it was great, but it was frustrating working with a number of teachers who obviously were not happy. The blessing part was the athletic director that I worked under was just the opposite. You know, he kind of taught me that attitude of gratitude. You know, boy, isn't this great? And we get to do this. And he really talked about, not being that complainer, that whiner. You know, let's not be satisfied, but let's be happy with what we have, and let's try to get better. But don't be that complainer. Don't be griping. Have that attitude of gratitude. Thanks so much for coming up with a great topic, shining a light on this, mental wellness for student athletes, for coaches, and for ADs. And thanks also for offering some great tips, some solutions, some tools, if you will, for our listeners. If some of our listeners wanted to pick your brain a little bit more on this topic or other topics, Orlandus does a great job at his school. What's the best way that our listeners can get a hold of Orlandus Thomas?
Absolutely. Definitely feel free to email with any resources or any suggestions or anything that I could do to help you on this topic. My email address is othomas@intrinsic.schools.org. That is othomas@intrinsic.schools.org. And if you don't email me, or if you're going to be in the Florida area for the Athletic Directors Conference, I would love to talk with you in person and share those tips with you, and definitely share best practices to make the profession that we do as servant leaders, servant leaders better for everyone.
Well, Coach, thanks again for coming back on the podcast. All the best. Looking forward to connecting at the national conference, and we'll definitely we'll get you back maybe this spring. We'll do an update.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate you as always.
Oh, you bet. For listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do the Toolbox Extra just about every week and just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please come back and join us again on the next episode of the Toolbox Extra on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Hey, before we go, of course, we want to thank all of our great sponsors. If you're at the conference, if you're looking for the services that these sponsors provide, you really need to check them out. And please mention the podcast. They'll probably give you a nice discount. I want to say thanks to Beacon Creative from Wall of Fame. I want to thank Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. SnapRaise, if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it, SnapRaise.com. Huddle, I used it as a football coach and as an AED. Go to Huddle.com. Athletic surveys, if you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your school, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Sideline Interactive, what can I say? It's probably the best purchase I ever made as an athletic director. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Home Campus, you're going to use it every day. Go to homecampus.com. Hometown, fundraising, website construction, leadership, go to hometown.com. And Ohio University's online masters, my assistant AD got his master's through it. Yeah, you can't ask for a better recommendation than that. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.